It comes as questions remain for Dr. Fauci following a massive email dump.
He's been under high scrutiny recently after an email dump of emails that were leaked from January to June of 2020. And one email about the origin of the virus. An infectious disease expert wrote that some of the features potentially look engineered. Conservatives have called this a smoking gun of a cover-up, especially when mentioning the U.S. grants to that Chinese research lab.
Fox's Alex Hogan. Plus, former President Trump returned to the political arena, taking the stage at the North Carolina GOP convention.
Former President Trump seemed thrilled to be back in the political spotlight, speaking to a group of conservatives in North Carolina. And while he had a lot to talk about, he also had some fresh criticism of his successor, President Biden.
Drugs are pouring in, gas prices are soaring, our industries are being pillaged by foreign cyber attacks.
Fox is told he's going to be holding more political events in the weeks ahead, including a speech in Dallas within the next few weeks.
Fox's Mark Meredith reporting the former president's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, also announced at the convention that she would not be running for the U.S. Senate. America is listening to Fox News.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Well, a new agreement with the Canadian government will allow NHL teams to cross the border for playoff matchups as needed. Fox's Ryan Mayer has this story.
Beginning with the Stanley Cup semifinals, NHL teams will be allowed to cross the border to play in Canada after the league reached an agreement with the government on Sunday. Teams coming from the U.S. will be subject to enhanced health protocols, including daily COVID testing and living in a modified bubble while in Canada. Currently, the winner of the Montreal Canadiens and Winnipeg Jets series is scheduled to face the winner of the Colorado Avalanche Las Vegas Golden Knights series in the next round. The new agreement would allow that series to be played in each team's respective home arenas rather than having to find a neutral site the way Canadian teams in Major League Baseball and Major League Soccer have had to. Ryan Mayer, Fox News.
And the longtime head of the children's publishing giant Scholastic Incorporated, who presided over such bestsellers as J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games, along with a wide range of educational materials, reading clubs, and book fairs, has died. Richard Robinson was 84. Over the past decade, he received an honorary National Book Award for his contributions to the literary community and was honored by PEN America for his contributions to free expression. Plus, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle welcomed a baby girl to the world on Friday.
Just north of Los Angeles in Santa Barbara, Meghan gave birth to her baby girl, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. She was born Friday just before noon at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara, where the Duke and Duchess of Sussex now live. Lily is named after her great-grandmother, Her Majesty the Queen, whose family nickname is Lilibet. And the baby's middle name is Diana, honoring her late grandmother, the Princess of Wales. Prince Harry and Meghan released an official statement. They say, quote, "On June 4th, we were blessed with the arrival of our daughter, Lily. She is more than we could have ever imagined, and we remain grateful for the love and prayers we felt from across the globe."
Fox's Christina Coleman, I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Do you dread waiting in those long, inconvenient lines? That's why you won't find them at Bank Pacific. We're back to our pre-COVID Monday to Saturday hours with all of our branches open. You know, that where others put branches, we place roots thing. And if you don't want to come to the bank, we have MyCloud Banking through which you can go to the bank on any of your devices, including through our new cool mobile banking platform with remote capture so you can deposit checks from anywhere. Offline, online, no line. Bank Pacific. Where others put branches, we place roots and rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Chili's is bringing you a full meal offer with 3 for Me for just $15. You get a beverage, a starter, and an entree. First, choose from a refreshing Coca-Cola or iced tea, pick a starter, then select your choice of a mouth-watering entree, like Cajun pasta with grilled chicken, ranchero chicken tacos, or the savory Santa Fe burger. Dine in today or visit chilisguam.com for delivery and to-go options. Chili's, 3 for Me for just $15. Available for a limited time. Chili's, savor the moment.
Hafaday, this is Congressman St. Nicholas. Your congressional office would like to remind you that pandemic unemployment assistance is set to expire on September 6th of this year. We encourage the people of Guam to seek out active employment as much as possible, as jobs continue to remain limited, and we want to prevent hardship for our people at the conclusion of the PUA program. Thank you, and see to us, Mahase.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I've got some good news about not infringing that right coming from a United States District Court in California. I've got my favorite columnist here, Jonathan Curley, to tell us a little bit about it. And the title is Federal Court Strikes Down California's Assault Weapons Ban. Yeah. Now, you know, assault weapons is another one of those dog whistle words. You know, if you are a Democrat and you're walking through an airport or a railroad station or something like that, and someone on the other end of the building whispers, assault weapons, just like a dog can hear sounds that humans can't. If you're a Democrat, you'll hear those words, right? Assault weapons, pro-life.
Your ears perk up.
Equity. Our diversity is our strength. These are all dog whistle words for the Democrats. And the Democrats would have you believe that next to nuclear weapons, the most dangerous weapon on earth is an assault weapon. Now, you could ask a Democrat what an assault weapon is, and the answer would be, well, you know, an assault weapon is one of those little assault weapons, you know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this is what Turley says. For many years, I've been critical of politicians running on promises of sweeping gun control legislation that would violate controlling case law under the Second Amendment. After every mass shooting, politicians pledge they will get guns out of society when they know that such promises mislead voters on the range of permissible action. Despite the columns of legal experts, the range of permissible illegal legislative action is quite limited. Moreover, the limits on things like clip capacity are unlikely to make a significant difference in gun violence. Now, a federal judge has struck down California's 3-decade-old ban on assault weapons as a violation of the Second Amendment. The decision could be raised in the ongoing consideration of the nomination of David Chipman, who President Joe Biden wants to head the ATF. In a case called Miller versus Bonta, and I know that usually Supreme Court cases are about as dry as dust, but this is really an interesting case. Miller versus Bonta, B-O-N-T-A. U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez of San Diego found that the ban on weapons like AR-15 are based on both a misunderstanding of the weapon and a misinterpretation of the Constitution. This is a California case, so nothing unusual here. Turley says, I previously discussed many of the same issues surrounding the AR-15, which remains one of the most popular weapons in the United States. Quote, while a ban on AR-15 sounds compelling, it breaks down under closer view. The AR-15 and other weapons in its class use an intermediate cartridge that is actually less powerful than used in a rifle. The more powerful the rifle, the worse it is, right? Yeah. Rifles are often these weapons are often twice as powerful as a handgun, but not nearly as powerful as a rifle. Moreover, guns like the AR-15 are popular because they're modular and allow for different grips and barrels. Judge Benitez noted many of the same issues in his decision. He held that the ban cannot satisfy any level of heightened scrutiny. He notes that the popularity of the AR-15 is due to its versatility. In the one controversial line of the opinion, he observed, quote, like the Swiss Army knife, the popular AR-15 rifle is a perfect combination of home defense and homeland defense equipment, good for both home and battle. The problem is that many politicians, like California Governor Gavin Newsom, opposed the decision of the Supreme Court in 2008 in District of Columbia versus Heller, affirming the right to bear arms is an individual right under the Second Amendment. The court has repeatedly reaffirmed that landmark decision. In 2010, the court ruled that this constitutional right applies to the states, as McDonald versus Chicago. Heller versus District of Columbia obviously dealt with the District of Columbia, not one of the 50 states. In 2010, the court ruled that the constitutional right applies to states as it does the federal government, since it's one of those fundamental rights necessary to our system of ordered liberty. These cases are controlling as politicians and commentators are fully aware. Benitez addresses the test for such laws and holds that the state does not come close to satisfying the burden. Before laying out this test and its application, the course notes, the Heller test is a test that any citizen can understand, parentheses, except those who live in California. Heller asks whether a law bans a firearm that is commonly owned by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. It's a hardware test. Heller draws a distinction between firearms commonly owned for lawful purposes and unusual arms adapted to unlawful uses, such as arms solely used for military purposes. As applied to the AWCA, the Heller test asks, is a modern rifle commonly owned by a law-abiding citizen for a lawful purpose? For the AR-15 type rifle, the answer is yes. The overwhelming majority of citizens who own and keep the AR-15 rifle and its many variants do so for lawful purposes, including self-defense at home. Under Heller, that's all that's needed. Using the easy-to-understand Heller test, it's obvious that the California assault weapon ban is unconstitutional. Under the Heller test, judicial review can end right there. This is only the latest major ruling by Benitez in this area. In 2017, he struck down the state's nearly 2-decade-old ban on the sales and purchases of magazines holding more than 10 bullets. As recently discussed, the Ninth Circuit upheld this decision, which is now scheduled to be reheard by an 11-member panel. These cases have a very strong chance for review before the Supreme Court, given the division across the country and the 6-3 conservative majority on the court. The decision could have some ramifications in the pending nomination of Chipman as director of APF. Chipman was confronted on the definition of what constitutes an assault weapon. Here we go. He told the Senate that the ATF defines an assault rifle as any semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detachable magazine above the chamber of 22. In other words, a higher caliber than 22, which would include a .223, which is, as you know, largely the AR-15 round. That would include a wide array of weapons. Indeed, a statement by Judge Benitez may resonate with some senators. This case is not about extraordinary weapons lying at the outer limits of the Second Amendment protection. The banned assault weapons are not bazookas, howitzers, or machine guns. Those arms are dangerous and solely useful for military purposes. Instead, the firearms deemed, quote, assault weapons are fairly ordinary, popular, modern rifles. This is an average case about average guns used in average ways for average purposes. The law of averages is bound to catch up with these anti-gunners. One is to be forgiven as one persuaded by news media and others that the nation is awash with murderous AR-15 assault rifles. The facts, however, do not support this. The characterization of a finding as one of fact or law is not controlling. To the extent that a finding is characterized as one of law, but is more properly characterized as one of fact, or vice versa, substance prevails over form. Hyperbole and facts matter. Federal Bureau of Investigation murder statistics do not track assault rifles, but they do show that killing by knife attack is far more common than murder by any kind of rifle. And the decision lays out the numbers. A lot more people are stabbed to death in California than are killed by any kind of rifle.
Trust the science.
Trust the science. Chipman made clear that he would enforce whatever the federal law prescribes in terms of any ban on the underlying definitions. However, he is viewed as an outspoken advocate for banning ownership of weapons like the AR-15, which was just declared as protected by the court. And you know what the real grievance with the AR-15 is? It's kind of like Trump. People say, I don't like Trump because of his politics. I don't like Trump because he's a racist. I don't like Trump because he has no, and on and on and on. But you know the real reason that people don't like Trump? He's got a crappy personality. When you come right down to it, that's it. Which is a whole lot more serious than some of the faults that other politicians have in the minds of those on the left. So you can impeach a president with a crappy personality, not just once, but twice. Even after he's out of office, you can still impeach him. And the thing that the left doesn't like about what they call assault rifles is the way they look. If they never bother to find out what the word rifle means, the difference between a semi-automatic weapon and an automatic weapon, they know they just don't like the looks of AR-15s. Going on back to Turley's piece, these are difficult policies and difficult cases. Reasonable people can disagree, including on the meaning of the Second Amendment. What is troubling is the level of misleading and frankly disingenuous discussion of the issue. The public is constantly being told that electing certain politicians will result in sweeping gun control when the current case law directly contradicts such assertion. That was the case in 2020 Democrat debates, where candidates made unsupportable claims and promises. For example, now President Joe Biden attacked Senator Bernie Sanders over a vote that had favored the gun industry. Biden declared that since the vote, 150 million Americans have been killed by guns. 150 million Americans. Almost half the population. When people asked the campaign about roughly half of our population dying in gun violence, it said the number was probably 150,000. I suspect maybe 1,500 would be more like it. Certainly not even 15,000. Nevertheless, many of the candidates promised massive changes. Biden declared, "I want to tell you, if I'm elected NRA, I'm coming for you. And gun manufacturers, I'm going to take you on and I'm going to beat you." That's what Joe said. Yeah.
Bet at least he doesn't mean tweet.
Yeah. Beto O'Rourke ran on the issue and most famously declared, quote, "Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15 and your AK-47. Huge difference between an AK-47 and an AR-15. You can't own an AK-47 unless you go through all kinds of federal hoops. Biden later declared he would make O'Rourke a type of gun czar for his administration. Such hell yes moments are likely to continue with the approaching 2022 election, but they may mean more judges who say hell no in constitutional challenges. Yeah, I'm always a little bit critical of those who say, "Oh yeah, I really like the case." What did you like about the case? Well, the ruling, the result. And tailgaters are used to a little bit of analysis and know that sometimes a good result reached for a bad reason is not something to celebrate. But this was a good result for a good reason and a very well-written opinion that I would recommend for anybody who is interested in such things. All right, talking about well-written things that are good to read, we'll put that aside for the moment and turn to the daily news. Zemi Ikotny. But before I go there, I'm going to entertain R. Keith. Good afternoon, R. Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. You know, it seems an awful lot of the discussion hinges on the definition of assault weapon or assault rifle, of which I don't think there really is a standard definition, but I don't know if you recall, and it was something that they scrolled at the bottom of their screen on CNN, that amongst the guns that should be banned are revolvers with detachable magazines.
Yeah, those revolvers with detachable magazines, they're just murder weapons. There's no reason to own one of those except to kill people.
And you know what? I'll agree with them on that one. If they can find a revolver with a detachable magazine, sure, ban it. Go ahead.
I think the Judge Benitez's decision does go into that, and what they mean is that it's a weapon that has a pistol grip and then a forward grip for your left hand, a flash hider. I can't remember the term of art, but the covering over a barrel, you know, the serrated covering over a barrel so you could pick it up even if it's...
Muzzle?
No, not the muzzle. It's over the top of the barrel. Yeah. And it's ventilated. So, you know, if the barrel were really hot, you could pick it up and you wouldn't burn your fingers. The flash hider, the detachable magazine, that's their definition of an assault weapon. And also a caliber larger than .22.
You know, I think you really nailed it for a lot of them earlier when you used the Trump comparison, you know. And it really, when it boils down to him, they just didn't like the man. He had personality issues.
Yeah.
And in the case of the assault weapons, quote unquote really don't like that term, but let's work with it. I think they just think they look scary.
Yep. Yeah, if they were 5 feet long and you needed a rod to load them through the muscle, they'd be okay.
Or pink. Maybe that's how we
Yeah,
cut down on
it's
the
probably the color. If they were painted pink, or I got it. I can tell you exactly how to rehabilitate the AR-15. I don't know where you buy the paint, but if you could find a store that sells rainbow paint.
Oh, there we go.
Paint your AR-15 with the rainbow colors, man, and you'd be home.
And let's take this one step further. So, one of the benefits, not benefits, what's the word I'm looking for? Features of an AR-15 is the ability to swap out parts. Does that make it a trans weapon?
I got a feeling it does. You added a little bit of sunshine to the show today, Keith, as usual.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Have a nice day.
Good talking to you. Yeah, I'll tell you, 2 days with no tall tales, we come back and it's just like I never left.
That's a dangerous thing.
It is.
An idle weekend.
It is indeed, yeah. Okay, let's take a short break and I'll come back to the Daily News.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
All dads should own a Traeger, and this Father's Day, you can win a Traeger smoker grill for your dad and feast on flavorful wood-fire crafted meals. Cooked with a flip of a switch. Cook low and slow or high and fast with digital precision on your Traeger pellet grill. Purchase $35 or more in fuel at 76 Circle K and enter to win. Gas up today and join Circle K's Father's Day package giveaway. A Traeger smoker grill, a canopy, a cooler full of meat, and 2 cases of Bud or Bud Light are up for grabs only at Circle K. Conditions apply. Visit 76circlekguam.com.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Well, you know that I was unmerciful in my criticism of the Daily News during the time it was still owned by Gannett. They never ran local editorials. They just recycled boilerplate from Gannett News Service or USA Today, and reading the stuff that they ran, you figure that you wouldn't be able to find a car as you were a person in their entire editorial boardroom that had 2 arms. They all seemed to have only a left arm because it was just so hard left. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but I'll go through what passes for an editorial today. Our view, vaccine incentives are well worth the cost. Guam had its path to half goal, vaccinating 50% of the adult population by May 1, based on estimates of a total adult population of around 125,000, led to the relaxation of some travel restrictions, paving the way for the island's tourism industry to reopen. And Governor Leon Guerrero said the island was on track to reach 80% immunization rate to fill Operation Liberate Guam by July 21. To help the effort, every Wednesday starting June 16, vaccinated residents can receive a $10,000 in a check or a new car. Those 17 or younger can win a $500 gift certificate for a staycation hotel packages. Federal grants pay for the $250,000 incentive program. Dumb idea. Really, really dumb. Guam, like much of the nation, has seen vaccinations drop as fewer Wuhan virus cases are reported. But according to the Washington Post, infection rates among the unvaccinated in several cases are as severe as they were in the darkest days of the virus. To boost vaccination rates, many companies are offering incentives, discounts, free child care, free donuts.
You'll be safe from COVID, but you'll die of diabetes.
Yeah. Well, this is for guys that really wanted to be cops but could never make the cut. Gift cards, free tickets to major sporting events, and the federal government allows states and territories to offer cash incentives to encourage residents to get Wuhan virus vaccine as long as they are reasonably expected to increase vaccinations and costs are reasonably proportional to the expected benefit of the public health. Ohio's Vax-A-Million program offers a $1 million lottery prize to this is whatever happened to this? An effective, as you were, an efficient, effective government operating within the rule of law, providing basic government services on at least a break-even basis. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see the government giving money away. Here's the punchline. If the incentives being offered by GovGuam improves the island's vaccination rate and makes us all safer and more protected against the virus, it will be money well spent. Wrong. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, yeah. You know, I would rather, you know, if you're going to throw money away, I would rather offer a reward. Come and get a shot, and we'll give you, recycling one of Jim Moylan's few good ideas, recycling one of those cards that would allow you to purchase goods at local merchants, you know. Something like limited credit cards that you can buy, and not here, but you can buy them in the States. You can plunk down $50 and buy something that looks like a Visa card, but it's only good for $50. So if we got to bribe people, let's do it that way.
And it's interesting that they call this an incentive lottery, but they've retroed the entries all the way to the very beginning of the vaccination program.
Yeah.
That's not incentive, it's reward.
Exactly. Which I would favor.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Because it's still a lottery pick.
Yeah, but no lotteries. I don't believe in gambling, you know, and I've had trouble with that back in the days when the church, Catholic Church, used to have lotteries. And back when I was a teacher, Mr. Klitzkie, would you buy some of my tickets for our fiesta? And I'd say, what is it? Well, you know, if you buy these tickets, you might win a prize. I don't believe in gambling. Well, it's not gambling, it's for the church. Well, it's one or the other. It can't be both at the same time. But I don't believe in gambling. All right, so this could go on the card. I have it stapled to the editorial because it goes to the heart of their editorial policy. And if it were on the card, it would be Phil Flores versus Rinvrati Sellis and Kaleo Moylan. It's very short. It's a letter from Phil Flores, who not only is a tailgater, but sponsors Tall Tales, for which we are extremely grateful. Yeah. And by the way, I try to help merchants out when I run into them in town, ones that hold themselves out as conservatives. And I say, you know, just help me out here. How do you avoid the embarrassment about Tall Tales? Embarrassment about Tall Tales? Oh, what do you mean, Bob? How do you respond when someone says to you, hey, Jake, how come you're not sponsoring Tall Tales? You're a conservative. Well, heck, half, fap, harumph.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not Phil Flores. Phil is a sponsor of Tall Tales, and here's what he says. Kaleo and Ree, We lived through years of witnessing the Daily News become the USA Today Guam version. Every day promised another hit piece on President Trump and worse, on any deplorable who would dare support him. The paper seemed to be getting better, but today any progress I thought was coming went out the window with your, quote, cartoon, portraying the policemen and women of our nation massacring black people, and with a smile on the policeman's face, massacring blacks is fun. It was pretty bad. It is pretty bad. Now, and I'm inadvertently, of course, advertising for the Daily News because folks that haven't seen it are going to want to see it, and you should.
It's horrible.
You should pick it up, and you should see it, and you should give a copy to Tom Shea and Mariana Leon Guerrero and tell them this is what critical race theory is all about. This is Black Lives Matter. This is the funny part about Black Lives Matter. Yeah. So I would recommend that everybody look at it, and if you, after looking at it, if you wanted to cancel your subscription to the Daily News, I would completely understand. Yeah.
This isn't the first time.
Yeah. So it's bad. And then Phil goes on to say, would you please be so kind as to tell me why you ran it and what makes you think it's something good for our community? And then here's the punchline. In closing, it was sickening. And it was.
Sure was.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the great question. What was the mindset of making that decision? Because it doesn't just automatically appear in the paper. Some heads had to get together and say, this is the best one we're going to print.
Well, I don't know, you know. Gannett sold the Daily News, but there's still a lot of cobwebs and dust and hairballs and stuff left over from when Gannett still owned it.
So then the PDN still has no control over their editorial cartoons.
It may very well be. It may very well be that the response would be, oh, gosh, I'm sorry. It's the one Gannett sent us. Well, here's the clue. It's better not to fill the news hole at all than put junk like that in it, Renvrati and Kaleo. Just leave it blank or spend some money on black ink and let it run black. But it was bad. And of course, in some places, probably some places where Gannett sells their papers, yeah, right on, you know. Yeah, defund the police. Black Lives Matter, defund the police. 1619, the country is systemically racist. Critical race theory is the only way. Our strength is our and all of this other garbage. Pretty disappointing. Kaleo, are you listening? All right. Next we go to the Post. It didn't run a crappy editorial cartoon today. Headline, funds from Congress should bail out the island, not just Gov Guam. Right on. The hearing may not have been packed to the gills, but it was refreshing to hear how citizens, not just elected leaders, want to spend the latest round of pandemic aid authorized by Congress in the American Rescue Plan. Lawmakers have released their own spending priorities for the federal funds, first in a unanimous letter, and now through a substantive resolution. Clear differences have emerged between the senators and the governor on how much to earmark to build a new hospital and whether to hire additional Gov Guam workers who support the island's economic recovery. An efficient, effective government operating within the rule of law, furnishing basic governmental services on at least a break-even basis. Unfortunately, the people aren't yet able to compare the two branches' ideas thoroughly, except those who have the ability to see through walls and hear through locked doors. Governor Lulian Guerrero has said her administration won't finalize spending plans until July, when the Federal Treasury Department is expected to release its final guidance. Interim rules have been given in the meantime. As of Friday, there's more than $500 million of this money already in the government of Guam's bank account. Now, I know the conspiracy theorists out there are saying, yeah, Lou's going to let it stay there so she can draw interest on it. But I understand that the rules are if you are holding deposits of federal funds, you actually have to pay if you hold them too long. But the way banking works is this. Banks have the ability to create money, for those of you who don't understand how a bank works. If you deposit $1,000 in the bank and the reserve requirement is 10%, the bank can lend out $10,000 based on your $10,000 deposit. And there are rules as to how, that reserve requirement. And of course, this is based on the idea that everybody doesn't come in to get his money at the same time. And that's the way banking works. So banks actually make money, not pieces of paper, but digits in accounts that actually show the creation of money that wasn't there before. So obviously, the more money you have on the bank has on deposit, the more it can lend. The more money it lends, the more interest it collects, the larger its profits. So I would suspect that all of this federal money is added into the reserves of the bank, allowing the bank to lend more money. And if I'm not correct on that, Lou, give me a buzz and we'll straighten this out right now.
I'll be waiting by the phones.
Yeah. And by the way, an interesting fact here, one of the things that really changed banking that seemed kind of inconsequential was this. Historically, you didn't draw interest on your checking account at the bank. And it must have been about 25 years ago that the law changed so that banks could pay interest on checking accounts. This is back in the days when, 6 or 7% interest was common. Nowadays, whether they pay interest or not, you're talking not even nickels and dimes, just pennies. So that the checking accounts, what they're called demand deposits, was the source of much of the money that banks lent out. And because banks had that huge reserve of cash that it didn't have to pay for, no interest, right? Banks went into consumer finance and mortgage lending to, on its own hook. But when that source of money dried up, it really changed banking. And smaller banks merged with larger banks. Banks sold their mortgages on the secondary market, and banks stopped doing very much consumer financing. Savings and loans came along, et cetera, to do that. So what seemed like a minor change turned out to really change banking. Okay, so as of Friday, there's more than $500 million of this money already in the government of Guam's bank account. Sitting on these funds isn't perfect for anyone, especially for businesses that are waiting for another round of local assistance grants. But hopefully, I hate to see that word like that, Adelup is using this time to listen and make an honest effort to take the advice of people who took the time out of their day to offer testimony before the legislature on its ARP resolution. This aid package represents the opportunity to help those who answered the call of service in the early days of Wuhan virus. Federal guidance allows ARP funds to use for essential worker hazard pay. There's already support from elected leaders to extend this benefit to healthcare workers like nurses at GMH who already got it. Let's pay them. If you're going to pay a government of Guam worker, pay them twice. Yeah.
Why stop there?
As brought up in the hearing, we also hope room can be found in this more than $600 million bailout to also fund similar financial assistance to grocery clerks, gas station attendants, fast food cooks, mom and pop store cashiers, and so many others who work throughout the worst of the pandemic. Yeah. Giving funds to the Waterworks Authority, the University of Guam, Guam Community College, the Guam Economic Development Authority, and the newly launched Vax and Win program are a great start to direct this money into the hands of furloughed employees? No. What are you talking about, Guam Daily Post? Paying people that got paid to stay home from work? More programs, benefits, and investments should also be considered, starting with a similar assistance package for the Power Authority to lessen or avert a rate hike. We realize this may result in less money for government agencies to buy equipment or hire more employees or expand social services programs. In other words, to make the government bigger, which is, of course, what the governor would really like to do. But redirecting these federal dollars into private sector can reopen more businesses and rehire more unemployed workers. It can allow more of us to resume pursuing a degree or return to the workforce. All it takes is a willingness to shift the limited resources toward these goals. As former Senator Tony Lamarena testified to senators, this federal bailout could be used as, quote, manna from heaven to instead pay for long-standing problems government of Guam has dealt with for years. This is not the time to fix systemic problems in the government. The intent of the American Rescue Plan was to fix immediate issues as a result of the pandemic. Lamarena said, "We agree. Congress has given away money at unprecedented levels and saw fit to give governors discretion on how to spend a whole lot of it. We hope all Guam's elected leaders want this federal aid meant to rescue our entire island, not just its local government. Our leaders have already begun to commit resources that benefit more than just Gov Guam, but they can and should build on these ideas." So why are you, Guam Daily Post, praising the governor for talking about giving the money to the Waterworks, the University, GCC, and the Economic Development Authority? No blue stars today. I probably ought to be handing out some D's. All right, let's take a short break and we'll go to the card.
Hey, big news! Now you can listen to The Point on radio.com. And radio.com gives you so much more. Local news stations give you what's going on in your community. Get national news from CBS, CNN, or Fox News Radio. Take a break with one of the hundreds of music, sports, and talk stations. Love podcasts? Radio.com has thousands of true crime, comedy, kids and family podcasts, and more. Listen anytime, anywhere. On your PC, smart speakers, and a variety of connected devices. Or download the Radio.com app now for the App Store or Google Play.
Busy week? Mezcla Bistro in Tumon has you covered. Let us take the worries out of your dinner meal planning. Check out our daily specials or enjoy some of your local favorites. Plus, receive a free kids meal with each adult dinner entree purchased Monday through Thursday. Call 969-2652 for more information or to make a reservation at the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. And don't forget, Jack Larimer is live every Saturday night. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
All right, so here we go with the card for today. First item on the card, Proteji Latexan versus Governor Lou Leon Guerrero and Michael San Nicolas. Yeah, and to really understand why the constitution of this card, you have to understand Sherlock Holmes's mystery called The Mystery of the Silver Blade. Remember how Sherlock was able to solve that case, Jose?
I don't recall that story, but I remember this.
Well, here's how it went. There was a horse named the Silver Blade that was killed. And, of course, Sherlock Holmes was hired to solve the crime. And Sherlock Holmes, in explaining to Dr. Watson that he knew who did it, because he said his clue was the dog. And Dr. Watson said, "What exactly did the dog do, Mr. Holmes?" Sherlock Holmes then said, "It's not what the dog did. It's what the dog didn't do." The dog didn't bark, so Holmes knew it had to be someone from that household that snuck in and killed Silver Blaze. Yeah. So remember that. It's not what the dog did. It's what the dog didn't do. Protege La Texan versus Governor Leon Guerrero and Michael San Nicolas. Next, we have oil and water. No, it's Guam versus GovGuam versus transparency. And then I've got BIPOC versus BIPOC. And for those of you who don't understand Woksterese, BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So this is BIPOC versus BIPOC. And I guess I got stuck on dogs today because this is the case, you know, the old saw about what is news and what isn't news. If a dog bites a man, it ain't news. But when a man bites a dog, that's news. That's BIPOC versus BIPOC. And then I've got a guy named Michael Brown, not the late Michael Brown from Ferguson, Missouri, a different Michael Brown, versus Pride. And for this one, I'm still looking for that store where I can buy a can of rainbow paint. Some merchants, if they don't sell it, they're bigots, right? If you can't go into a paint store and say, "I want a can of rainbow paint,"
I'm not going there.
Yeah, well, the guy that owns the store better not come back with some kind of "it's against my religion" talk. Yeah. And we've got Turley versus the New York Times, which kind of takes us back to the media. And Lebowski and Therese versus doctors. Right-wing, quote, conspiracy theory versus left-wing, quote, truth. So I'm going to start out here with Protege La Texan versus Lou and Michael Michael San Nicolas, right? Congressman Michael San Nicolas has signed a letter sent to President Biden along with the bipartisan Keeping Our Promises Working Group agreeing to evacuate Afghan allies with Guam as an option for staging. Specifically, the letter includes the stipulations of Congressman San Nicolas that any Afghan evacuation plan that includes Guam also ensures Afghan evacuees are vaccinated and housed to protect the community. We just commemorated Memorial Day, and my San Nicolas clan remembers our fallen eldest, Major Henry San Nicolas Officiar, who we lost in Afghanistan, as well as all our sons and daughters of Guam and Micronesia. They would all want us to do this, to do everything we can to honor our commitments and their sacrifices in defense of our nation and freedom, San Nicolas said. He added, "This is our time to answer the call to duty, and I call on the people of Guam to once again showcase to America and to the world we remain a fortress of freedom, unflinching and unrelenting." So I got a couple of comments here. This is what I've been saying, what I'd like to see. I phrase it like that, not what I want anybody to do, not advancing some great policy, etc. But what I would like to see is for Guam to present itself as a can-do, hard-nosed, tough, don't push us around kind of place. We went eye to eye with Kim Jong-un, and he blinked first. We've been through some really, really bad typhoons. That would, the folks in the mainland can't even imagine what it's like to go through a typhoon and go through the aftermath without power and water, et cetera, et cetera. If a lot of folks that we know, I know one really, really well, lived through the Japanese occupation of World War II. So I don't want us to do like Michael Bavacqua, whine about what some Navy captain said in 1904 and do this critical race theory. He said that and it's racism, and therefore we're entitled to all kinds. I hate that. I like to see exactly what Michael St. Nicholas said. Here we are, we're tough, we're willing to help. So that's my first observation. My second observation is that Governor Leon Guerrero last week said the same thing. You want to send us your Afghans? Send us your Afghans. We'll do our part. Okay. Now, the title here is Proteji Latexan versus Lou and Michael St. Nicholas. So what do you think about what Proteji Latexan did, Jose?
They didn't do a thing.
They did not do a thing, and that's why they're on the card. It's not what they did. It's what they didn't do. This is the kind of thing that, that they'd be out demonstrating, waving the Guam flag, press releases, Gloria Hernandez, former senator, what was her name? I can't remember her whole name. I just remember the outstanding feature. It went like this. Oh, yeah, Kelly Marsh, Titano. Bringing all these Afghans in here, they're going to, there's going to be rapes and riots. They're going to ruin the environment. They're going to spoil the waterlands. They're going to be importing rhinoceros beetle on and on. This is the kind of thing that ordinarily just really drives them wild. So where are they? What's the problem here? I got a theory. Yeah, I have a theory. And that is that they only attack the governor when she signals that it's okay to attack. Or they only attack the governor or the government or, other people when they think their own pocketbooks are safe. Because I would have expected a gigantic display down at the Guam Museum about this. Michael Bavacqua, the arch separatist, hasn't said anything about Lou, and I'll be waiting for his column on Friday to see him, if we weren't a colony, Michael St. Nicholas wouldn't be saying those kinds of things. So it's not what Proteji Latexan did, it's what they haven't done. Okay, I'm coming up here to the big halftime show, and I've got another Joe on the line. Another Joe, we're going to get to you after the big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
First foreign trip I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. Vice President Kamala Harris making stops in Guatemala and Mexico as the crisis at the southern border continues.
The RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, tweeted, Kamala Harris should stop at the U.S. border on her way to Mexico and Guatemala to see Biden's record-breaking border crisis firsthand. Former President Trump spoke about how he sees the border situation.
Illegal immigration is skyrocketing at a level that we've never seen before.
The Yuma sector not only has those CBP officers, but also Coast Guard, Army, National Guard, and DHS volunteers all helping to manage the influx of migrants.
Fox's Lauren Blanchard. Meanwhile, former President Trump speaking on Saturday at a GOP event in North Carolina, criticizing the current administration and China with regards to the coronavirus.
The former president spoke for more than an hour. He seemed thrilled to be speaking to a large group of conservatives. And while he touched on a number of different topics, he really seemed to get the most applause and even a standing ovation when he brought up his thoughts on the pandemic and how it may have first spread.
The time has come for America and the world to demand reparations and accountability from the Communist Party of China. We should all declare within one unified voice that China must pay.
The president also spent much of the night during his speech attacking his successor, President Biden, but also talking about foreign policies and promising to play a more active role in the upcoming 2022 midterm elections.
Fox's Mark Meredith. And police in Southern California say 2 people have been arrested in the road rage shooting death of a 6-year-old boy. The California Highway Patrol says 24-year-old Reese Marcus Anthony and 23-year-old Lee Wayne were arrested Sunday in Costa Mesa. 6-year-old Aiden Leos was fatally shot on May 21st while seated in the back seat of a car driven by his mother on State Route 55 in the city of Orange. America is listening to Fox News.
Do you dread waiting in those long, inconvenient lines? That's why you won't find them at Bank Pacific. We're back to our pre-COVID Monday to Saturday hours with all of our branches open. You know, that where others put branches, we place roots thing. And if you don't want to come to the bank, we have My Cloud Banking through which you can go to the bank on any of your devices, including through our new cool mobile banking platform with remote capture so you can deposit checks from anywhere. Offline, online, no line. Bank Pacific. Where others put branches, we place roots and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Well, a year ago, Virginia's governor announced plans to remove a statue of Robert E. Lee from the state's capital city of Richmond. But the statue is still there. Fox's Kevin Uretsky explains why and what comes next.
The 131-year-old statue remains standing in a traffic circle in downtown Richmond due to 2 lawsuits filed by people who believe it should stay put. This coming Tuesday, the Virginia Supreme Court will hear arguments in the cases which claim Governor Ralph Northam doesn't have the authority to remove the statue. The state argues it can't be forced to maintain a statue that no longer reflects the state values. The governor announced his decision 10 days after the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis in May of 2020. The statue was the site of protests over Floyd's death and is now covered in graffiti. Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
And police and rescue officials say 2 express trains collided in southern Pakistan and at least 30 passengers were killed. Police said 15 to 20 passengers were trapped in the wreckage and authorities were trying to arrange heavy machinery to rescue them. It wasn't immediately clear what caused the derailment. Plus, Sunday marked the anniversary of one of the largest military operations in history, the moment when the U.S. and its allies stormed the beaches of Normandy. Fox's Jill Nato has more.
It was 77 years ago when General Dwight Eisenhower announced the beginning of the end of Hitler's regime.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the Great Crusade.
D-Day.
The eyes of the world are upon you.
Their mission, gain a foothold in Europe, starting by storming the beaches of Normandy. About 156,000 American, British, and Canadian forces landed to start their assault against the Nazis. Now, usually D-Day anniversary ceremonies in Normandy attract thousands of people from around the world. But this year, like the last, events were scaled back because of the pandemic. Jill Nato, Fox News.
I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Half a day, this is Congressman St. Nicholas. Your congressional office would like to remind you that pandemic unemployment assistance is set to expire on September 6th of this year. We encourage the people of Guam to seek out active employment as much as possible, as jobs continue to remain limited, and we want to prevent hardship for our people at the conclusion of the PUA program. Thank you, and see to us, Mahasi.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Busy week? Mezcla Bistro in Tumon has you covered. Let us take the worries out of your dinner meal planning. Check out our daily specials or enjoy some of your local favorites. Plus, receive a free kids meal with each adult dinner entree purchased Monday through Thursday. Call 969-2652 for more information or to make a reservation at the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. And don't forget, Jack Larimer is live every Saturday night. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
So there we are, big halftime show that we all know and love so much. Back again for the second half of Tall Tales. I go back to the card. Next item on the card is oil and water, Gov Guam versus transparency. The two don't mix. And the headline of this story that ran in the Post, agencies mum on disciplinary actions after gambling fallout. The International Airport Authority and the Port Authority have instituted disciplinary actions following administrative reviews of allegations that police officers within the respective agencies were involved in prohibited gambling activities. Neither agency provided specific details, such as how many employees were disciplined. Port General Manager Rory, what do they think they are, the Archdiocese? Port General Manager Rory Respicio simply confirmed that the agency completed its internal review and administrative action was taken. And here we go again. Because this is a personnel matter, we are prohibited from further comment on the matter. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And this is kind of like Tina's resolution in the insular cases. You know, there is nothing in the open government law that prohibits anything. You know, and mumbling, oh, it's a personnel matter, as though you know what you're talking about, is the clear sign that you don't know what you're talking about. If you were to read and study the open government law instead of going on the, well, everybody knows that you can't talk about personnel matters basis, you'd find that there are some categories of information that can't be compelled. In other words, that a properly filed suit could not end in a court order requiring that the information be disclosed. So when a government director tells you that it's a personnel matter and he can't disclose it, he's not telling you the truth. What the truth is, it's a personnel matter, and I don't want to disclose it because there's nothing in the law that prohibits the disclosure of anything in the Open Government Freedom of Information Act or Sunshine Law. So Rory, again, is wrong. The airport authority similar stated that it's concluded its administrative review. As a result, the agency imposed disciplinary action, such as a dismissal and suspension without pay, according to Airport Authority Program Coordinator Elfrey Koshiba. Now, that's a lot better than Rory's, we're prohibited from discussing it any further, which is wrong. So at least they're saying here, they're kind of giving you a hint. Yeah, we impose disciplinary action. Now, if you understand how the government of Guam works, there are 3 forms of disciplinary action: termination, suspension, demotion. Those are the forms of
you forgot the 4th one. Promotion to special assistance.
At the governor's office, yeah, which is worse than termination, actually, because of the working conditions. Good call, Jose. Yeah. So, using the powers of deduction, then you figure, well, somebody got fired and somebody was suspended without pay, but we don't know who. And I got to stop here and bring some common sense to this matter. People who work for the government of Guam are paid with taxpayer funds. I pay taxes. You pay taxes. Almost everybody pay taxes. And when one of the people that is paid with our taxes is guilty of misfeasance, nonfeasance, or malfeasance, we need to know about it. You can't keep it a secret. What great public policy is furthered by not letting us know who was disciplined and what the discipline was? It would have a dramatic effect on public support of the government and on the behavior of government employees. I don't want to do this. I don't want to show up late for work every single day and run the risk of being suspended and seeing my name in the paper. Yeah, it's something that we don't want to do. Well, if we put the names and the discipline of government employees, if we made that public, it would be embarrassing to them. We can't do that. It's embarrassing to me when people in the government commit misfeasance, malfeasance, or nonfeasance. That's the embarrassment. So it's time we either started doing that, and I again tell you there's nothing in the Sunshine Law that says that if Joe Sixpack got fired, there's nothing that said you can't announce publicly who got fired. It's just not there. You can't be forced to tell. It's a matter of discretion. But government directors would be well taken to exercise the discretion in favor of openness so that we know that they're doing their jobs, that they're holding people accountable, instead of this poor general manager, Rory Respiso, simply confirmed that the agency completed its internal review and administrative action was taken. Quote, because this is a personnel matter, we're prohibited for further comment on the matter.
Nope.
Wrong. Allegations were also lodged against Guam Power Authority employees. Inquiries regarding the status of internal reviews were submitted to the utility as well, but a response is pending until next week. We have to wait until next week for the Power Authority to tell us we can't talk about it. It's a personnel matter. Now, in mid-March, Guam Police Department Chief Steve Ignacio confirmed that he was informed by the U.S. Secret Service that they were actively engaged in a criminal investigation and named one member of GPD regarding alleged online gambling activities. The department also launched an internal affairs investigation involving the officer. The administrative review is still ongoing. So is a joint investigation by the Office of the Attorney General and GPD into possible criminal activities of government employees regarding the online gambling investigation being performed by federal authorities. The Airport Authority was the first agency to be named with regard to illegal gambling allegations involving government employees. At least one airport employee was terminated. Former airport police officer Jericho Santos. I was waiting for the ceiling to just collapse in on me. A horrible earthquake. The darkening of the sun. I actually mentioned the name on the air of Jericho Santos, who was fired for misconduct. God.
And the person who revealed that name still has their job.
Yeah.
Even though it's prohibited?
Yeah. Well, repent ye sinners, the end is near. We can't tolerate this is horrible. He was alleged to have violated personnel rules against gambling or unlawful betting during work hours and promoting gambling on government premises, among other rules. The offense reportedly involved a poker gaming app. Santos' final adverse action mentions that others were named in a notice of proposed adverse action against him, but that Santos took full responsibility and he indicated the others were just players. Somehow this makes it okay, right? Yeah. Another guy named Santos, or maybe it was Cruz, I don't remember, got fired for drinking on the job. He brought a bottle of whiskey to work with him, and he was drinking and he was passing the bottle around, and he got fired for bringing liquor to work with him like that. But he took full responsibility. He said the others were just sippers. Rather than termination, Santos asked for the opportunity to resign. He submitted a resignation but was handed a final termination notice the day after, on December 31, 2020, which he is now fighting at the Civil Service Commission. So, and I suppose there is a way to screw up our personnel system worse than what it is, but I think it would be too big a job for just one man. I think you'd need, probably a half dozen people to get that job done.
It's a group effort.
Group effort, yeah. Okay, so let's see if Jericho Santos is on the line to take issue with my mention. Oh, it's another Joe. I forgot about another Joe. He wants to talk about Afghanistan refugees. Yeah, go ahead, another Joe. Sorry, I forgot about you after the halftime show.
It's all good. It's educational. I agree with what Congressman Nicholas is saying. We should do our part to contribute to assisting our American allies. And I just think that maybe he stopped short of taking credit. For he says, you could have said now that we're showing our ability to contribute. Maybe, wink, wink. We should be getting that seat at that table for COFA negotiations. The Compact Impact. So
I knew that was coming. Yeah.
But you gotta think, you left the opening there because
isn't that kind of the way life works? I mean, if you're talking about the workplace, you've had a job. Another Joe probably had more than one, right?
Yeah, through the years.
And who tends to do better on the job? The guy who shows up for work on time, ready to go to work, attacking his duties in with a positive demeanor, getting everything done that needs to get done, and being positive all the time, and letting the boss know that there's no such thing as a job too tough for him to handle. Let's call him A, or B, who bitches about everything he has to do on the job, is always complaining. Say, I don't know why I have to do this. Why can't somebody else do it? It's just not fair. Which of those, that would be B. Who do you think is probably going to get the better deal on the job? Another Joe?
Yeah, the A.
Yeah, so we have some people on our island that think, no, we got to be B. We got to be bitching about something all the time. We got to be whining about when some Navy captain said in 1904. We got to constantly trot out the insular cases as though we knew what the insular cases said, and say, look what you did to us in 1901, on and on and on. So yeah, I complimented the governor when she came out and said, yeah, if we can help, we'll do it. That's the kind of attitude that's going to get us a whole lot farther than the constant carping and grousing and kvetching that some folks on the island seem to think is the way to go. Not only that, and I know this hardly has any weight anymore, it's the right thing to do. That used to be a really important consideration, but it's not so much anymore. Right, another Joe?
That's right, and they take notice, like I think Indonesia took notice that we helped in, what was it, their typhoon or tsunami, and people who were enemies of the U.S. will criticize them for not being more anti-American, and then they I think if I'm remembering it right, they say, hey, remember that natural disaster we had? Who was it that came to help us? Oh, that's right, the United States of America came to help us. And where were you guys? Oh, that's right, you guys weren't helping us as much. So yeah, it does carry weight, and it does get noticed, Kebab. And also, I want to mention former President Trump, the art of the deal, right? So you want to do your best, try to get the most out of it, right? Is that fair to say?
Fair enough. Now, what about the other half of the equation that I posed? What about Protehe Latexan? How come they're not doing their usual bitching, griping, moaning, and kvetching when this is the kind of thing that they're always complaining about?
Maybe they're starting to see the light, listening to you, Kebab.
Nope.
Yeah.
Maybe they listen to Dopal secretly.
Yeah.
They're being converted.
Well, let's hope. I suppose hope springs eternal in the human breast.
Hey, thanks for your time, Kebab. Appreciate it.
Good talking to you, another Joe. Yeah. So, we're talking about personnel matters and Rory, because this is a personnel matter, we are prohibited from further comment on the matter. Yeah. Really bad performance here. Okay, next on the card here, well, we're zipping right along today. I've got BIPOC versus BIPOC. When a dog bites a man, it's not news. When a man bites a dog, it is news. And this is something that I got out of, I think, Time. Yeah. I'm sorry, New York Times. Tribes to confront bias against descendants of enslaved people. Yeah, now tribes, you know what kind of tribes? I'll give you a hint. It's what Elizabeth Warren wanted to be. Indian tribes, Native American tribes. Tribes to confront bias against descendants of enslaved people. That's why this is the man biting the dog. The Choctaw Nation and the Creek Nation in Oklahoma said they would consider granting citizenship to the freedmen. Now, who are the freedmen? This is a really interesting story. David Hill, the principal chief of the Creek Nation, wrote to the tribe's National Council proposing town hall events and a period of public comment to discuss citizenship for Creek. And being from Wisconsin, I shouldn't be saying creek. I should be saying crick, because that's what you call a small body of running water in Wisconsin. It's a crick.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They did in upstate New York as well.
Okay. Yeah, the Creek Nation. With pressure coming from the Biden administration, 2 Native American tribes in Oklahoma have agreed to consider reversing their policies of denying citizenship to descendants of black people who were enslaved by them before the Civil War. So the Creeks and the Muskogee, as you were, and the Choctaws had African slaves.
Yikes.
BIPOC versus BIPOC, right? But the 2 tribes stopped short of a commitment to grant citizenship. That's tribal citizenship. Now, most people don't understand this, but being a Native American, being an Indian, as far as the law is concerned, doesn't get you special fishing privileges or the ability to open a gambling casino or all that stuff. What it gets you is potential membership in a tribe. And if your tribe is recognized, then the United States treats it as a subordinate sovereign. Many of the tribes have treaties with the United States. So it's not being an Indian, it's being a member of a tribe that counts. Now, 99% of the people who are members of the tribes are Indians, Native Americans. But here's a really interesting exception. Those tribes and others which had originally inhabited the Southeast purchased enslaved people, black people, as laborers in the 18th and 19th centuries and brought them along when they were forcibly relocated by the federal government in a deadly ordeal known as the Trail of Tears. Post-Civil War treaties in 1866 gave the formerly enslaved people all the rights of tribal citizenship, which means something. It means you can live on the reservation. But in practice, they were segregated, and their citizenship rights later denied by a requirement that they be descended from non-black tribal citizens who were on census lists more than a century ago. Sounds like you had to be grandfathered in. A situation that prompted increasing protests in recent years. Quote, "Today we reach out to the Choctaw freedmen. We see you. We hear you. We look forward to meaningful conversation regarding our shared past," Gary Batten, chief of the Choctaw Nation, said in a letter announcing that the nation would consider tribal membership for Choctaw freedmen. David Hill, the principal chief of the Creek Nation, also wrote to the tribe's National Council proposing town hall events in a period of public comment to discuss citizenship for Creek freedmen. Friedman said the tribes took action, it's not free, it's Hill said the tribes took action, or excuse me, Friedman said the tribes took action only after being pushed into it. So here we are, we had Indians and Indian tribes that owned slaves. After the Civil War, they signed treaties with the United States saying that those slaves would be admitted to citizenship in the various tribes. But they reneged on their promises in the treaty. Black Indians were a part of this tribe, the Choctaw Nation. They lived in the Choctaw Nation, said Verdi Triplett, a descendant of both Choctaw and Chickasaw freedmen who lives on the Choctaw Reservation in Fort Coffee, Oklahoma. He added, for them to do this now, they didn't do it on their own. This right here is a prime example of pressure. The announcement from the Choctaw Nation followed a statement this month from Deb Haaland, the first Native American Secretary of the Interior, addressing the freedmen of Native American nations in Oklahoma and acknowledging their rights as citizens of the tribes that had enslaved them. The Cherokee Nation's actions, Ms. Haaland said, referring to the tribe's decision to amend its constitution in February to grant equal status to its freedmen population, had fulfilled their obligations to the Cherokee freedmen. The Cherokees, yes. Choctaw, no. Creek, no. We encourage other tribes to take similar steps to meet their moral and legal obligations to the freedmen, Ms. Haaland said, naming 4 other Native American nations in Oklahoma: the Creek, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and the Seminole Nation, that had owned slaves and allied themselves with the Confederacy to preserve slavery as an institution.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Native Americans. BIPOC versus BIPOC. Yeah. Indigenous people allying themselves with the Confederacy. And Arizona did declare itself a state of the Confederacy at one time. Yeah. But they allied themselves with the Confederacy. With those words, Ms. Haaland waded into a painful reckoning within Native American nations in Oklahoma that had historically owned slaves. Changes to the Choctaw Constitution in 1983 and Creek Constitution in 1979 required that a citizen of the nation must be descended from by, quote, by blood, close quote, citizens, and disqualifying the freedmen who were counted separately in the federal census known as the Dawes Rolls of 1906. So this isn't something that's been going on they did this in 1979 and 1983. They took them off the rolls. Said, you gotta have some Indian blood here. All right, let's head for Chicago in the 7th inning stretch.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Celebrate Dad this Father's Day. Mescla Bistro in Nagalia is always happy to serve you and the family. We offer your local favorites to include herb roasted prime rib and honey glazed ham. Treat Dad to our special Sunday brunch buffet to enjoy free-flowing draft beer and sing along with Didi Uehara. Sunday, June 20th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 12:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Seating is limited, so call us at 479-2652 or 2653 to make your RSVP. Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Okay, going on here. Changes to the Choctaw Constitution in 1983 and the Creek Constitution in 1979 required that a citizen of the nation must be descended, quote, by blood citizens, disqualifying the freedmen who were counted separately in the federal census known as the Dawes Rules of 1906. The Cherokee Nation had also previously expelled its freedmen, and the Seminole Nation currently grants only limited citizenship to its freedmen. Equal citizenship in a Native American nation would qualify the freedmen for a number of tribal services, including housing, health care, and education, much of it funded by the federal government. Older Choctaw and Creek freedmen recall being eligible for these services before they were expelled from the nations. Funding in the CARES Act distributed to tribal nations recently funded services exclusively available to by-blood tribal citizens. Seminole freedmen who applied were denied because of their limited citizenship in the Seminole Nation. The Choctaw and Creek freedmen would also be guaranteed civil and political rights within their nations, such as the ability to vote and run for tribal office. In interviews, descendants of freedmen described repeated appeals to the tribes for inclusion as equal citizens and repeated denials on the basis of their race. It's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. The Reverend McKinley Rice, the senior pastor at St. Matthew Baptist Church in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, and a Creek freedman said, "In the day that we live in, and the time we live in, we was hoping and praying that racism and discrimination was, gone." The letter from Mr. Batten marked a shift by the Choctaw Nation. Batten wrote to Speaker Nancy Pelosi nearly a year ago condemning efforts by Representative Maxine Waters. Oh, here we go. Now we're getting to the heart of the story. The chairman of the House Financial Services Committee to compel the tribe to re-enroll its freedmen as citizens by withholding federal funding. So Auntie Max strikes a blow for freedom and justice, right? The freedmen issue is a problem caused by the United States, not the Choctaw Nation, Mr. Batten said at the time, referring to America's enslavement of African Americans, while making no mention that the Choctaw freedmen are descendants of people enslaved by the Choctaw Nation. Slavery is a really bad thing, with one notable exception, said the Choctaw man. That is, if the Choctaws did it. In an interview, Mr. Batten said the federal government played a role in facilitating racist policies like the by-blood requirement for citizenship. He added the Interior Department ultimately accepted the constitutional changes from the Native American nations that had expelled the freedmen in violation of Reconstruction treaties. My issue with the federal government is because they implemented policies and we follow those. Now they're saying we should not abide by these policies. It's a kind of catch-22 as far as I'm concerned. Much easier to blame I've heard this one before. It's better to blame the federal government than take responsibility yourself. Chuck Hoskin Jr., the chief of the Cherokee Nation, who has been a longtime supporter of the freedmen, said tribes had worked tirelessly to make sure the federal government upholds its treaty obligations. Cherry-picking which treaties to uphold undercuts that fight, he said. I don't think any nation is as strong as it can be when it denies its history and suppresses part of its history, Mr. Hoskin said. I think that's what's happened in respect to the freedmen. The Chickasaw Nation had jointly signed its Reconstruction Treaty with the Choctaw Nation, but did not comply with the condition to enroll freedmen as citizens. Some Chickasaw freedmen enrolled as citizens of the Choctaw Nation, but were never included as citizens of the tribe that had enslaved them. The Choctaw and Creek freedmen would also be guaranteed civil and political rights within their nations, as their ability to vote and run for tribal office. Bill Anatobi, the governor of the Chickasaw Nation, said in a statement regarding Ms. Holland's remarks that Chickasaw citizenship is a matter of sovereignty and is clearly defined in the Chickasaw Constitution. The Seminole Nation did not respond to requests for comment. Leetta Osborne Sampson, a Seminole freedman who serves on the tribe's governing council, said she did not expect the Seminole tribe of Oklahoma to follow suit voluntarily. Ms. Osborne Simpson said the tribe's position had long been that it would take a ruling by a higher court to compel them to allow freedmen to be recognized as equal citizens. Eli Grayson, a Creek citizen with freedman heritage, said he was skeptical of the statements from the tribal leadership. He noted that the freedmen barred from citizenship would have no influence over a vote to change the tribe's constitutions and predicted the measures would ultimately fail. Citizens today do not have a right to vote on an issue that was settled during the Civil War, Mr. Grayson said. They've already settled this treaty with the U.S. They don't have a right to change the conditions of that treaty. For Creek Nation, race was a key motivation for changing the Constitution. In a National Council meeting in 1977, discussing the changes, Principal Chief at that time, Claude Cox, expressed fear that the nation would be outnumbered and replaced by its black citizens over time. The full-bloods lost control. That's what we're fighting, Mr. Cox said. Mr. Hill, the current principal chief of the Creek Nation, said in his proposal that citizenship for freedmen is a polarizing issue for our citizens. A deeply personal and highly emotional issue goes to the heart of identity for both Creek citizens and descendants of freedmen, Mr. Hill said. As a nation committed to truth and justice, it's important that we reflect upon this issue with an open heart and seek to understand what is right and equitable. Very interesting. Now, I don't see the Black Lives Matter folks flocking to Oklahoma to support the freedmen, the Choctaw for these freedmen. I wonder why. And of course, you know the reason why. It's only racist, it's only condemnable if you can condemn someone who's one of those, God, I hate to use the word on the program, white people. Otherwise, well, you know, Indians and freemen, we don't know nothing. We don't know anything about that. That's not what we riot, loot, and commit arson about. We're not going to go down to Oklahoma and start Oklahoma City on fire. Not us.
We're not that sophisticated.
Yeah. All right, let's see what we got here from another Joe.
He's going to connect COFA to the freedmen.
Another Joe. No Indian tribes are eligible for any kind of COFA money at all. I just thought I'd head you off at the pass on that one.
No, well, I think, Bob, this goes back to the War of 1812, where I think the Cherokee, and I don't know how many of the other tribes were in league with the British. And so I think Old Hickory, Andrew Jackson, took it personal. And then you got the Chocolatiers, right? To remove the Cherokee, and I don't know how many of the other tribes.
Mm-hmm.
So they were known as, I think, the Confederation of the Five Civilized Tribes.
I think it was 6.
So, 6?
Maybe.
Because, of course, we know what happened. They were replaced by the American Confederacy, right? These land areas. And then the rest is history. So they went from they just basically took over, and they transplant, and they call them over some time call themselves they want to call themselves a confederacy. But these tribes, they were basically mimicking the whites of the day, and it was very civilized and to own a slave, and so therefore they had to do the same thing, which was a mistake. And then I guess they were slow to they picked the wrong side. They don't want to stop having slaves. So it's old. I guess you would call it blood feuds. Old scores to be settled with these Cherokee and all these other tribes, and it's interesting that it's coming back up again. But then, like you said, well, they have a treaty, right? That's been negotiated. So
the story wasn't complete because they didn't tell us what Black Lives Matter is going to do to help the freedmen get justice. And I haven't seen Tom Shea and Mariana Leon Guerrero down at the Skinner Plaza with a sign that said "white coats against red." No, that wouldn't work very well, would it? Okay, another Joe.
I'm just surprised they don't go after the slavers, the people who were capturing the slaves and selling them, the Muslims in Africa and the monarchies that were profiting. Anyway, thanks for your time, Uncle. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's a little known fact, but slavery was seen as a merciful way to deal with a defeated nation in war. Through most of human history, right up until close to our Civil War. Because when you defeated another nation, what did you do? You're raped and pillaged, right? And you didn't want to have to deal with them again, so you killed the men. That's how you conquered another country. But somewhere along the line, it was decided, well, instead of killing them all, we'll just make slaves out of them. Economically a better deal, etc. So slavery was a worldwide institution.
You mean it wasn't just in the United States?
No. The United States did not invent it.
That sounds racist.
It does, yeah. You got to give the Brits were the first Western country that really put the skids under slavery. And now, of course, if you read, I can't remember, Hannah Jones's 1619 paper, she will tell you that what the Revolutionary War was about was the 13 colonies wanting to secede because they were afraid that Britain would free the slaves in the colonies, and they couldn't handle that. So, okay, I've got somebody on the line who really doesn't need to repeat because he's so dynamic and so fluent that he gets his point across the first time. Go ahead, repeat.
Yeah, Uncle Bob. Hi. It's been a while, but I was listening to you earlier about the man bites dog and dog bites man. It reminded me of a story of this very wealthy Chamorro guy who had a dearly beloved poodle that passed away. And so he went down to Agana Cathedral and he asked, how much, when they could schedule a mass for his dog's funeral. And the priest told him, "Are you kidding me? This is a Catholic church. We don't have mass for dogs. Why don't you go check one of those Baptists or, one of those other churches?" So the wealthy Chamorro man said, "Oh, I'm sorry for offending you. Do you think $50,000 would be enough to donate to that church?" And the father said, "Well, why didn't you tell me your dog was Catholic?"
Good story.
You were talking earlier about putting labels on things that makes it better, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if your poodle is Catholic, you're in luck.
Well,
it also helps that you have a $50,000 donation.
Can I tell you about the priest and the penitent, Pete?
Go ahead.
I
don't think I heard that one.
The penitent was a heavy smoker. And he said to the priest, he said, "Father, I just smoke all the time. I wake up in the morning, I pop a cigarette in my mouth. The last thing I do before I go to sleep is I smoke a cigarette. And I'm such a heavy smoker, and it's so hard for me not to smoke. Would it be okay if I smoke while I'm praying?" And the priest said, Heaven forbid, my son. Of course not. That would be blasphemous, disrespectful. No, you can't smoke while you're praying. Thank you, Father. A few days later, the penitent came back and he said, Father, I love the Lord so much that even when I'm enjoying a cigarette, I feel like I should pray. Is it okay for me to pray while I'm smoking? Bless you, my son. Not as good as yours, Pete. Good talking to you, Pete.
Likewise, Uncle Bob. I'll call again when I hear, something that triggers.
Very good. Okay, we're going to go to Churchill Downs, and I expect to run into none other than our Carl at Churchill Downs.
Need to finish the job or start one the right way? Get the right stuff at East West Rental Center. You can switch to easy mode using industrial strength equipment. With years of experience helping builders, East West Rental gives you exactly what you need. Tools for landscaping, concrete, lifts, trucks, tables, tents, chairs, water blasters, excavators, forklifts, air compressors, and more. Call East West Rental Center at 646-1463 or visit them in Upper Tumont. Open Monday to Saturday from 7 to 5, Sundays 8 to 5.
All dads should own a Traeger. And this Father's Day, you can win a Traeger smoker grill for your dad and feast on flavorful wood-fire crafted meals. Cooked with a flip of a switch. Cook low and slow or high and fast with digital precision on your Traeger pellet grill. Purchase $35 or more in fuel at 76 Circle K and enter to win. Gas up today and join Circle K's Father's Day package giveaway. A Traeger smoker grill, a canopy, a cooler full of meat, and 2 cases of Bud or Bud Light are up for grabs only at Circle K. Conditions apply. Visit 76CircleKGuam.com.
So here we are back again, Tall Tales at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. And there's a little bit of something going on over here out in one of the bleacher areas. The most dangerous man in the racetrack has drawn a crowd searching for his autograph. Good afternoon, Carl.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Sorry I haven't been calling in like usual. I've been busy doing some much-needed renovations on my house. I was up on the roof for about 2 or 3 days, and you guys are always in the background. I'm always listening to you during Tall Tales, so I haven't been missing out.
You miss a little, you miss a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, I just wanted to call in regarding the issue of the Indians and slavery. And I think what that article you brought up is a really great example of how complicated the issue of slavery is. And I think you mentioned that slavery was practiced on, I remember Thomas Sowell said that slavery was practiced on every inhabited continent on the face of the earth for thousands of years. And when it comes to the Indians, I'm really interested because they're often painted as, the victims of America. And so I'm interested in understanding more about the background of that. And Thomas Sowell wrote an interesting book as part of a trilogy called Conquests and Cultures, and I got that book specifically for the section on Africans and also the Western Hemisphere Indians. And he writes about the 3 big confederations, the Cherokee, the Iroquois, and the Plains Indians. And what many people don't realize, and you may have mentioned this at some point, and I didn't hear it, is that it was a common practice because there was a lot of intertribal warfare going on. And when a tribe was defeated, the practice was to kill those who would pose a problem. I think you mentioned, killing the males would be more trouble than they're worth, killing children who couldn't carry their own weight. But squaws who could serve a purpose as slaves for the tribe were kept, and that was a very common practice. And so slavery was practiced even among the Native Americans, and a lot of people aren't really aware of that. That it was something that the tribes practiced in order to advance their interests. And I just thought I'd mention that little tidbit.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Carl, and you do, of course, bring a reputation with you, so as the most dangerous man in the room, we're always glad to accommodate you.
Okay, Bob. I'll always enjoy listening. I'm usually listening somewhere.
Okay, Carl. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I got about, 4 minutes to go, Jose?
Just about that.
Yeah.
Just real quick, when I lived in Connecticut, there are two main tribes there, and they both own casinos. One are the Mohegans, from, everyone knows them for the Last of the Mohegans,
Sure.
same tribe. And the other one are the Mashantucket Pequots, who run Foxwoods Casino. Now, what's interesting is that anecdotally, people say the Mohegans look more like Mohegans, but the Mashantuckets look more like darker skin, or maybe they don't look like Indians. And I remember Trump saying something similar a long time ago when he was investing in casinos over there in the Northeast. But I'm curious to know if they're part of that freeman situation as well, and their descendants, because they prove through lineage that they're descendants from the Pequot tribe.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. They're making out pretty well, those casinos, those tribes.
Well, I wonder who's actually making the money at the casinos. I wonder how much of it actually winds up in the hands of your average Native American. I'm suspicious.
Yeah, there's only a couple hundred, maybe at most 300 living on the reservations now, which isn't really a lot if you think about it.
That's true. Okay, so I got about 3 minutes to go here. I might start this one. I've got to finish it up tomorrow. It's Michael Brown versus Pride. And it's not that Michael Brown. It's not the Michael Brown that died in Ferguson, Missouri. It kind of started this whole thing off, right? And Pride, this is Pride Month, if you didn't know it. And that's why I became so interested in where I could buy that rainbow paint. I better not hear of any paint store that says we're not selling any rainbow paint. So it was about 20 years ago that a conservative commentator stated that because the homosexual movement could not grow by reproduction, it had to grow by seduction. And it's true, two males aren't going to have very many children. Same with two females. Understandably, this incurred the ire of gay activists, as if their main agenda was the sexual seduction of others, including children. What this conservative commentator should have said was this, quote, "A homosexual movement cannot grow by biological replication. So instead, it puts its emphasis on ideological indoctrination." That would remain true to this day. And I'll pick this up tomorrow. Okay, so here we are at the end of the show. So good to be back in Tall Tales again. We'll be back tomorrow at 1600. See you then.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Getting the COVID shot at church. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. First Lady Jill Biden and Dr. Anthony Fauci toured a COVID-19 vaccination site on Sunday at a historic Harlem church where they encouraged Americans to get vaccinated.
We have to get back to life as normal. And Dr. Fauci is here and he's working hard. He's working 7 days a week.
And it comes as questions still remain over how the coronavirus pandemic began.
The top doctor in the nation faces a lot of scrutiny for leaked emails that came out from last year, from January to June during the pandemic. Hundreds of pages, including one from a researcher that questioned the virus's origins. Fauci himself responded to the email dump this week and the potential origin of the virus, still defending his stance.
We all felt, and still do actually, Willie, that it is more likely to be a natural jumping of species from an animal reservoir.
Going on there to say that an investigation is warranted since they don't know for sure, but currently 41% of the total population have been fully vaccinated.
Fox's Alex Hogan reporting. Meanwhile, police enforcing a 10 p.m. curfew in Washington Square Park in New York City Saturday night.
A violent night in New York City's Washington Square Park after a 10 p.m. curfew went into effect. The New York Police Department said 23 arrests were made, many for disorderly conduct. 8 officers also sustained minor injuries in scuffles with those who refused to leave. The city put in place weekend curfews in the park to try to tamp down on drugs and other illegal activities they say have been happening there. And it's not just the park. Throughout New York City, crime is increasing. According to NYPD data, this May, crime rose by 22% compared to May last year. There was a 73% increase in shootings. Hate crimes, 335% increase against the Asian community.
Fox's Lauren Blanchard. America is listening to Fox News.